Welcome, everybody. Hello and welcome to PKA Soft Touch Microneedle Design Technology. My name is Victoria Bennett, and today we are going to hear about PKA Soft Touch's equity crowdfunding campaign and get an insight into the microneedle trial process. If you have any questions, you'll see on your screen there's a little chat box there. Just put your questions into the chat box, into the comment box, and we'll make sure we answer them before the end of the session. First off, I'm going to introduce the PKA Soft Touch founder and CEO, Dick Crawford. Hello, Dick.
Hello, I'm happy to be here. I'm always happy to speak to investors and potential investors of our technology. I hope today you will learn a little bit about our technology and why this will disrupt the 170-year-old syringe injection market.
Excellent. So last year you raised $436,000 for veterinary trials of the microneedle, and this year you're looking to raise $750,000 towards human trials. So let's dive into the development process for the microneedle and the veterinary trial. I understand there are different testing requirements for the different classes of device. Can you explain the class system in reference to the PKA Soft Touch microneedle?
So in the world of pharmaceutical research, there are several different classes of devices, and our device is a class 2 device. It's really a combination device because it includes the drug as well as the device. Class 1 is something like your eyeglasses or something that would not go and penetrate your skin barrier. And a class 3 device is something that's implanted inside your body, such as a hip replacement piece of metal or a piece of metal in your arm or a broken arm.
Excellent. So this is a class 2 device. So I'm guessing, there's very clear guidelines about what the testing would be for a class 2 device. So can you explain the proof of concept clinical trial process? So how you need to prove the efficacy of the device with the approved drug and how you trial the device and you don't have to trial the medication. Because I think often people think of, oh my golly, medical trials, there's millions, hundreds of millions. But I know for you, it's slightly different.
Yeah, there's a lot of background to give you to answer that question. If it's when a pharmaceutical company develops a new drug, this takes a lot of money and a lot of time. Typically, we could be spending $100 million in 10 years development. And this is to develop a new drug or abbreviate a new drug in accordance to Health Canada, FDA, or European Directorate. But in this case, we have only a medical device and we are using an approved drug. So we don't have to do those kinds of expensive trials. So however, we have to do a very short trial to prove that the device works. In order to attract licensees to our technology, we have to prove that it works. And we do this by doing a very short clinical trial called proof of concept, and whereby we start with either animals and then followed up by humans. That's the normal process that we have to do. So why do you start with veterinary clinical trials? When we all drug companies follow a similar pattern in that when you use develop a drug or develop a device, we test it on animals first before we test it on humans. A is that if there's something that is injurious to a animal, we rather have that happen at that level versus doing that with a human. So human is much more restricted in terms of what we can do, and so the animal trial gives us advanced indications of how the drug is going to react on an animal's body.
Or in this case, the device. So yes, that does make sense. Can you explain the process? What are the typical timeframes for a medical device a Class 2 medical device like this?
It depends on what the kind of the medical device that you're perfecting in terms of how long this development takes. We've been at this for a number of years, and to perfect this device has to be very accurate, it has to be rapid, and has to be easy to use, be low cost. And so it took a lot of time and effort to get to this point. So now we have to, back a little bit in time, we did some early trials with animals and also with humans a number of years ago. But now we advanced the technology to what's called an almost marketable device. And so then we have to repeat these trials on the device that would enter the market. So our first step would be an animal trial. And this trial would be using what's called a 3D printed device. Research and development companies use the 3D printed device because we can change that easily. As we assemble and do online testing before we actually go into a clinical trial, we make sure that it works. And if something doesn't work, we just print another part or another couple parts to make sure that it works. So it's a way to ensure that the technology works. And then we take this 3D printed material device, and then we do a very short animal trial. And if it works there, then we upgrade our technology to make molds. And so we make molds from the software that we developed for the 3D printed materials. And then by then it's almost perfect. And then we print devices, injection mold devices. And then we do another clinical trial with this device. And if it comes out perfect there, we're ready to market this device to potential licensees, veterinary companies. However, this is also the first step of going into human trials. So now we have the device that's injection molded. It's a low cost. We're in the same cost range as a syringe. And then we look for a potential site to do the human trials. At this time, we now have to apply to Health Canada. Previously, Health Canada is not interested much in the animal trials. They don't govern those. However, we are governed by the animal industry's regulations that protect the animals. And so now we're into the human trials. We now have to apply to Health Canada for permission to have the trials. And we have to provide them with the protocols and how we execute the trials. So after they review it and ask us many questions, once we get approval from them, then we go ahead and execute the trial at a hospital. We already selected a hospital in Newmarket. We then do the trials and we gather the data, and then we send the trials back to Health Canada for approval. And then Health Canada gives us approval to market the trial. That is the home run for us. And then we send that, we make that data available to human drug companies. And away we go to obtain potential licensees. Another question that comes up in this process is saying, why aren't you selling this device yourself versus licensing the technology? And one of the reasons is that I can't buy this drug because the industry is set up, the regulatory industry is set up to protect humans. And so the drug companies have to take total responsibility of this device, and therefore we license the technology to them so they can then make the device, market it, and sell it through their normal distribution channels. And we, after that time, receive a royalty for every device made. So that's how we intend to make money. So, so we do that for one drug company, and then we do the next one for another drug company in a different industry, and so on and so forth. There's thousands of products that this could apply to, and so it gives us a great growth potential for this company.
Well, I know, I mean, wasn't it originally invented for diabetes? Wasn't that the driver behind it?
Yes, I can explain that there. My partner is Dr. Modi. He's not available today, and but he invented this device. He's a long-term diabetic since he was age 16, and he's a born inventor. He doesn't write anything down. Everything is remembered. He's a brilliant scientist. And so he invented this device, and he came to me and said, Dick, I need to make it work. And I'm a pharmaceutical industry with 50 years experience in this industry. And so I made it work. So that's our partnership, and it works very well for us.
We have a question from Pam Searle. Thank you very much. So when are you applying to Health Canada for the human trials to start?
So after we complete both veterinary trials, and then we would apply to Health Canada. So we have to have a site. We have to write the protocols. The hospital or site where we perform the trials needs to approve the protocol, and then we're able to submit that to Health Canada for approval.
Do you have a feeling timelines?
So the timelines for our trials is that we expect to early fall, we will complete the first veterinary trial. The second veterinary trial will be completed early next year. And in the late summer of next year, that's 2022, we expect to execute the human trials.
And I know how long medtech development takes. So that actually seems like there's light at the end of the tunnel. It actually feels like you're very close to full commercialization. Am I putting words in your mouth, or
it's a bright light in our tunnel?
Conrad was actually asking about the ETA for vet trials, and I think you've just addressed that one. But he does ask, have you seen positive test results so far?
Well, we do a lot of testing because our device has to work 100% when we enter the first veterinary trial. And at this point, I can say that we have 100% reliability, but we're still checking some of the other aspects of the device. So once we go into the veterinary trial, we expect to have excellent results.
Excellent. We're getting loads of questions coming through. I'm just going to, I have a couple I want to ask you, and then I'm going to open up to the floor, but the floor is obviously very interested. So this is great. And I'm loving the questions coming through. You alluded a bit to it, a bit of your history and a bit of Dr. Modi's history, certainly as a diabetic, and this certainly isn't your first rodeo. So what skill sets and experience do both you and Dr. Modi offer in the processes? So running clinical trials, for example, and developing products like this?
Yeah, first, Dr. Modi, he has over 40 years experience in the pharmaceutical industry. He has invented many different products. If you Google his name, you get an idea of just what he's done in the past. He's over 300 patents. He's done hundreds of clinical trials, and so that's a good start. I have over 50 years in the pharmaceutical industry. I've worked in the U.S. Market for 20 years for major pharmaceutical companies. I bring that background, and then since then I've been working in Canada and doing a lot of pharmaceutical plants. And bringing products to make products that they can go to market. So
certainly not your first rodeo.
No, yeah, we have. I also have done clinical trials in the past.
And I think one point you raised there with about Dr. Modi or his patents, I mean, one of the things that really impressed me about PKA is, you have really tied this up. You have well-managed, very comprehensive patent portfolio.
Yes. Yeah, we can answer all the questions that can be asked because we're so experienced in this, and when developing a device like this, it takes a lot of effort and creation of thoughts to get it down on paper, get it into a software package, make a device. So it's been a lot of trial and error to get to this point.
Christopher asked us a similar question. Has a patent been issued for this product? If so, in which countries? I think it's probably good to allude to the comprehensive cover you have.
Yeah, so we first, when we first applied, the first patent was in Canada, but then at the same time we applied for PCT. This is called Patent Cooperation Treaty. So this allows you to obtain patents all over the world if you so desire. And so after 1 year in having a PCT approved application, we then have to perfect the patents in a number of countries that we want to patent. So we patented in major English speaking countries, such as the US, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia. And then we went to some other countries such as Japan, the European Union. When you obtain a PCT there, you have access to the 26 or more countries now. And then we go through another PCT process in the European Union, and we end up with 14 countries, which is the major countries such as the UK, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and so on. So that's how the patent process goes. And so at the moment, we have 23 patents to our name. So some other big countries outside this market would be India and Brazil. They're big markets, and particularly India, which is a huge market. So,
definitely. So, question from Sukhvinder. Although still early, how much interest have you had from the drug industry?
That's a very good question. In the process of developing this technology, Dr. Modi and I know, because of our experience, many different major worldwide pharmaceutical companies. And over in the last couple of years, we have had meetings or conference phone calls with 20 or 30 different scientists from these companies online. We have identified 20 major pharmaceutical companies who were sitting in the wings waiting for our clinical trial information. And so once they receive that, then we're in business to start talking to companies for developing a licensee agreement with them.
So they're all warmed up, primed, ready to go.
Yes, they wouldn't be this way if they didn't think we had something to really talk to them about. So they're really interested in this technology.
Do you know what we haven't done? We haven't actually shown people the technology. I was wondering, do you have a device to hand that you can show people? I just suddenly thought this. For those of you who haven't seen it before, probably a good idea to see, because I think one of the things that people don't realize is when you see a syringe, and 27% of the population are frightened of injections. One of the things that we're seeing at the moment is this sort of vaccine hesitancy, but a lot of it is because people are frightened of needles. This doesn't look like a needle.
This is what it looks like. This doesn't look like it's going to hurt anybody. And so how we use this device will come in a plastic wrapper because it has to be sterile. The reason why the device has to be sterile has to go inside your skin. And I'll demonstrate that on my whiteboard in just a second here. But in terms of how somebody would use this device, they would then take off the safety cap. So this prevents somebody from accidentally squirting the drug into the air, right into your skin. And so you then, you would hold it, I'm going to use my hand here, you against the skin. Now you don't push it into the skin, you just need to delay it because the forces are between the two wings on the side and your thumb that pushes the plunger on the top. You just push down, in a second and a half, you have the drug in your skin, and it's painless. And I'll demonstrate why in a minute here, why that's painless. So then you have the drug, you take it off, and now we have a spring inside that then pulls the pulls the needle back into the device, and so there, no pain, right? Nothing sticking out, no needle phobia. And we put the safety cap back on, and now I just throw this away in the waste basket. No sharp disposal. That's huge in this industry. So let me explain a little bit why this device works so effectively in the skin. So we have here skin. We have the epidermis and the dermis, and then in between we have what's called interstitial fluid that's always moving in the body. And as you know, the skin is the biggest organ in the body. So our target, and this is our device. So we have a needle inside, and this needle comes out, and we inject the drug into an interstitial fluid. Any nerves are down in here. This is where all the nerves are. So we're above the nerves, hence a painless injection. What happens with a syringe? The syringe goes into the past the skin into what's called intramuscular or fatty tissues. But you see, that's where the nerves are. So that's where your pain is going to happen. So this is, if you look at the two devices and both the same price, which one would you want to use? That's one.
And I mean, my understanding as a biochemist is that interstitial fluid actually moves around the body far quicker than the blood. So in many ways, your distribution could be much quicker than using the blood or even intramuscular injections.
Yeah, let me explain the reason for that. Is that the interstitial fluid, because the skin is the largest organ in the body, gets the bloodstream twice as fast. Down here, the drug has to go find capillaries, so it takes longer to do that. So if I'm a diabetic, and we have data, I should show that because it's on our website, but it's also in our business plan. There's a chart with time and drug. And so what happens with a syringe, you get a curve like that. With our device, you get a curve like this.
Mm.
And so what that's saying that the effect on the body, we can achieve that in half the time. So if I'm a diabetic, I can figure half the time before they inject myself to take care of my caloric index I would get from a plate of food.
So I have a couple of quick fire questions. How much volume can be injected at one administration? That's from Sukhvinder. Thank you.
So our device has a fixed amount of drug inside of it. It's a constant chamber. And so one of the questions I normally get is from people who use insulin, and they'll say, well, if you have a constant chamber inside the device, how do I get to my different dosages? So what we do, let me see here. I'm just going to use a sample of what's inside our device. Let's say that's the fixed chamber. So we vary the concentration of insulin in media. You know, when you get injections from anything, you know, the active is very small amount, but there's a media in order to deliver the drug inside your body. So we vary the concentration of insulin in this, and we can go from anywhere from 3 units up to 80 units.
Okay, wow.
Of insulin, which nobody uses 80 units. I mean, it's really large. Most people are in no less than 50 units. So.
And I mean, that the fact that it's pre-dosed, the fact that the dose is actually already in there, that should stop some of the dosing errors that we often not often, but occasionally hear about, where people have actually taken up too much or too little drug in a syringe, just either due to a typo or something like that. Because it's pre-dosed, it will have a fixed amount in there.
So the device inherently prevents errors, right? Because we have a device, so we'll have a label on the side of the device saying that this is XYZ drug in so many milligrams, and then there's a cap on this. And so if we're talking about insulin, we want to vary maybe the color of the cap for the different dosages, red for 10, yellow for 15, and green for 20, that kind of thing. Because people who are on insulin, their eyesight's begin to fail after a number of years, and so it's easy for them to look at the color code in their box where they get the devices from, and then pick out the right one for their particular uses. So we have to have a label on there. It's required by the pharmaceutical industry. So, but the fact that it's all pre-dosed at the factory, let's say this is 3 milligrams. So we know that that's done at the factory. And so somebody in the field, all they have to do is pick the right dosage, and away they go, right? So it eliminates a lot of errors.
Yeah.
It could be a cost saving to the medical industry.
Now, both Tanuj and JM have mentioned the Injex 50, Ajax Pharma International, and they say it's a similar product. Do you see that as competition? Do you see that as considerable competition? Is actually the question that Tanuj asks.
Yeah, so we, in our research, obviously we're in a market. There were a lot of other people trying to do what we're trying to do. When I was involved with the patents, developing the patents with Dr. Modi, we found out that many other people have been entering this field for over 50 years. And I can pretty well look at a patent and tell you this is going to work or that was not going to work. So there are patents out there and competitors out there that have something that we can tell doesn't want to work. They have people out there that have patches and other injection devices. They're expensive. We're in the $2, $3 range, the same price as a syringe. There's a company out there that has a close looking like an injector, but it costs $70. So why would we can't market one for $70, right? Versus a syringe, right, or our device.
Yeah. So, and is that the Injex 50 that people are asking about?
That's one of them. That's not the one that I was referring to, but they're similar. And the.
So why is yours better?
That's because doesn't. It's painless. Can be used anywhere in the body. The needle retracts and locks. We have patents, 23 patents in the world, and we think this is going to be the market disruptor. And once one company does this, once one drug company license our technology, we think that others will line up very, very quickly here.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. I have got so many questions, so I'm just trying to make sure I answer them all. I'm trying to group them together to make sure they come together. So Lenore Gibb, how long can a drug last in the bubble? Does it last longer than a conventional syringe?
It's a good question, and I'm going to give you a little history on this one here. So once we perfect this device and we do a proof of concept with one of our trials, then we start the license process with a drug company. And the next thing they're going to say, okay, Mr. Crawford, we know the device works, but does it work with our drug? So now we have to do what's called compatibility studies. And so we have our, I'm going to use the diagram here. So again, we have our device and we have our chamber inside. So we will put their drug inside our device and determine does the drug affect the chamber lining, or does the chamber lining affect this drug? So there's companies that do this all the time, and so we find out that if there's any reactions, in most cases we don't, because we have a very unique, very inert chamber membrane. And so we answer that question with a compatibility study, and then we also do what's called short-term and long-term stability studies, so that we determine, is this going to last for 18 months or 12 months or 24 months? And that normally determines the expiry date anyway, but we don't do that. The drug company is going to do that. Mm-hmm. We will prove to them that it's stable over that period of time. That's a typical stability range.
Mm-hmm. Tanuj is asking, what would be the expected price when it hits the market?
Okay, that's another good question. We know that we can our price point is the same as a syringe with a vial, right? You have a syringe and then you have a vial here. So that cost versus our drug being inside the device, if it's made by the millions, we're in the same cost range. But we don't determine the cost of the device in the market. The marketing company determines that. So they license it, we license the technology to them, and they may say, geez, this device has so many more attributes, even though it costs the same as a syringe, I may put a premium price on that. Mm-hmm. So, but it'll be up to them to be determining the price range.
And Tanuj and Bernard West both asked the same question or similar question. Sorry, it jumped up, so I just had to. Can the device be recycled, especially as we have a problem with plastic pollution? And also, what about plastic disposal? So, similar question.
It's a good question, but unfortunately, we can't recycle them because once you use the device, we have somebody's DNA inside this device, so it has to be destroyed. And so,
is that the same as a syringe? Do syringes are destroyed as well? So it's comparable.
Yeah, we will follow the same procedures that a syringe follows.
Okay. Question from Bob here. Can insulin in this device be stored without refrigeration?
Whether a drug requires refrigeration or not is up to the drug company. So, it's like insulin, we know it has to be stored at 4 degrees centigrade, and other drugs may be colder or warmer or room temperature. Yeah, one other thing I want to insert into this conversation, which is a lot of people don't know, Dr. Modi, who's brilliant, has stabilized insulin at room temperature. So that's something that when we get some more money, we expect to apply for patents for that breakthrough.
Wow, that is incredible because, I know one of the things was to be able to go out, be out with friends, be able to sort of inject yourself discreetly, at the table whilst you're eating or before you eat. And so to be able to just carry it with you and not have to worry about refrigeration is incredible. Kevin Chu, will commercialization begin after the veterinary trial 2? So I'm guessing that's the molded veterinary trial.
That's the molded one.
Yes. Because
the SLA device can't be sold because it's extremely expensive to do that.
That's the 3D. That's the 3D version, isn't it? Yeah.
That's a 3D version, and it's much more expensive and would be uneconomical to enter the market with that. Nobody would buy it. Mm-hmm. So we go to molds, and then now we're talking about cents. In terms, so. So after that's done, after that second veterinary trial is done, that is a market version that a potential veterinary licensee could pick up. We have a mold, we can sell them a mold, and away they go.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Sukhvinder asks, how does the plastic cope with sub-zero storage? I'm thinking of vaccine storage, which may need very low temperatures.
Yes, some vaccines require lower temperatures, not many, but we have that's a research area we have not done. So we don't know how our materials will form at that low temperature. But like everything else, we would do more testing to see if that works.
Excellent. I think we've answered all the sort of product-y type questions. I've got a number of questions about the offering. So if it's okay, I'm going to move into that. So I'm just scrolling back up. So apologies if people thought I wasn't answering your questions. I was just trying to pull them together. So Christopher, what is the closing date for this round of funding?
It's 1 October. Of this year, so two more months from this point in time.
Yeah, as he says, the offering memorandum doesn't state a date, but that's typical about offering memorandums because they can stay open for a time. The closing date is agreed with the front funder, and then JM has lots of quick fire questions. So I'm just going to fire them over to you. So, how many shares are there in the company?
Well, we have over 33 million outstanding shares.
And what's your current cash position versus how much cash is required for the next 2 years?
So right now we've started this campaign 2 months ago, and we need to raise 1.26 million. And this will take us through to the completion of the human clinical trials.
Which, as I mentioned before, when you look at the cost of doing drug trials, is a small drop in the ocean. So, and I believe you're sort of, is it about just under 700,000 raised so far?
Correct.
Another question from JM. Is the plan to continue raising operating cash on front funder at 20 cents?
Right now, Dr. Modi and I feel we're going to maintain the 20 cents a share until the end of the second clinical trial for on the veterinary, and then we're going to reevaluate, or the company will reevaluate our position on that. You have to realize that the price is fairly low for what we're doing today. And that once we have a marketable device, which is at the end of the second animal trial, we think the value will be huge,
Mhm.
because now we have a marketed version that actually works and is a licensee that wants to enter the market with it. So we think the value will be greatly enhanced.
And JM's final question, will there be warrants offered for larger investments?
Yeah, we can't say at this time what that would be, because every large investor have different plans and different wants, and so it'll be determined on each individual applicant. So.
Mm-hmm. Danuj is asking a question about the pricing again. Since you mentioned that there is a device marketed at $70 and PKA Soft Touch has no control over the marketing price, we would not be sure if the pharmaceutical company sells at a premium price. But then how would we be better off in the market price-wise?
Well, first of all, I go back to the fact that we're not going to determine the market price. Somebody else does that. The drug company will do that. And also the fact that one other thing I should mention here is that once a licensee, we already talked to these 20 different drug companies. So what's going to happen here is that we will license technology to drug company A, and let's say it was an insulin company. They will say, well, I want worldwide exclusive rights to this. So there's three major insulin drug companies, and so the first one that signs the license with us, the other two are excluded. So they're gonna look at that and say, well, I can really gain market share. I can make this same cost as a syringe, but it's got all these other attributes. So maybe I'll sell it for maybe $1 more and make some money. But they will gain the advantage of having the inside edge on increasing market share.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the name of the game.
You've designed this so that it is cost parity to a syringe. So really it's then up to the drug company to make their own decision how they wish to price it. So, I think that's what you're alluding to. If they feel they could get $70, then I suppose they would do. But I think the likelihood is, from what you're saying there, that it would either be price parity or just a small price premium.
Well, even if they didn't change the price, the fact that we have so much other attributes, it would sell itself. I think that we're going to find that the market itself is going to drive it. People will want this. I get calls every once in a while from somebody saying, I need this device for my dog, or I need this device for my aunt that has diabetes or pain medications or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to drive this market.
Couple of questions, one from Lenore, one from Tanuj. Do original investors in 2010 have preferred shares status?
No, we can't do that because we have to treat all investors the same. So the best way around this is to purchase more shares. And if you want to increase your potential of making money in this market.
So really, everyone's going to be on the same footing until next year with successful vet trials, and when the company considers the share price.
Correct.
And what was the price at which the first fundraising was done?
It's always been at 20 cents.
Okay. Excellent.
So we Dr. Modi and I kept this the same. So we kept everybody on an equal basis. Everybody gets a common voting share. So we didn't do anything different than that. So
excellent. So I think we have answered everybody's questions. I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody attending today. We've had a great we've had a great when I said that, people have fired questions in. Has PKA Soft Touch thought of a royalty price on each sale by the drug company?
Royalties again are negotiated with the company based on a number of factors, but usually royalties are between 3 and 5% of the product as sold.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of royalty stream that we get. Again, the drug company has an exclusive rights to, let's say, to insulin, so they won't be on any other insulin competitors. And then the next market may be heparin or morphine, or some flu vaccination or something, and then that starts a new product stream for us.
And we're talking about a market. I think the World Health Organization said last year there were 17 billion syringes used worldwide. And that was in, actually, I think that was 2019.
Right. And we're not going to replace every syringe, but we can replace a lot of them.
Yeah. Bill Gibb is asking, have there been issues with the 3D printer? What needed to be updated?
Again, 3D printing technology is evolving, and so every year it gets more perfect, less defects, and so now we know we have 100% reliable device, and so now we are finishing off some other minor mechanical items in the device, and that's what we're working on right now. And because once we start the trial, we want to have a perfect device.
So it's more to do with the 3D printing than the device. That's been the sort of the stuff that you've been working on.
That's correct.
Question from Tanuj, which I think we may have already answered. When do you think the product is going to hit the market?
Okay, another good question. So let's assume that we have early January. We have a good clinical trial on animals, and by the way, the results of these trials are pretty immediate on the animal trial. We will know within a month of the statistics, and then that we can market that to veterinary companies for licenses. And let's say the veterinary company decides, gee, this is really great, and we start the compatibility studies, and we end up signing a license agreement. So that could go in the market as between 6 months to a year after that. Again, I always tend to be conservative. And then the same thing for the human market. The results of the human trial will take several months because it has to be approved by Health Canada, up to 3 to 6 months. And after that, then the potential license with a human drug company is concluded. And again, we wait another 6 months or a year, depending on what the market potential is and when it's available to the public.
I think that answers your question, JM. Which the first market venture would be the animal drug delivery. And Lenore is asking, will you keep shareholders apprised of the trials and the results?
Good. I'm glad you asked that question. We have since day one issued what's called briefing notes. It's a fair question. We know a lot of people have contributed to what we're doing, and so we want to tell them what we're doing with their money. So we issue briefing notes on a quarterly basis. So we explain what we're doing with their money, and we've been doing that successfully, and it's worked out really well. So all the potential investors, new investors, you're going to be in the same boat. So you will get briefing notes for anyone who is invested in our company.
People are asking so many questions, and they're great questions. So in terms of size, how big is 1,000 PKA unit occupy compared to 1,000 syringe? That's beyond my technical knowledge. Does that question make sense to you, Elias? It's from Elias. My apologies if I butchered that question.
Do I understand, like, you can stuff these devices in the box and gonna get how many gonna get syringes in, how many gonna get a device in? It's a good question. Syringes come in different sizes. We have one constant size right now for us. And so I don't know what the size is of syringes, syringes for animals can be quite large, right? So, or also some different human drugs have different size devices, different sizes of needles. Can't answer that.
Both Tanaj and Bill have the same question. Do you plan to sell the company? Have you been approached with any M&A offers, any outside interest other than shareholders?
We've had a few companies interested in our technology, and again, we're all going back to square one. We want to see the data, in which we get from the clinical trials. In terms of our exiting strategy, first thing, once we have a license, let's say we get a license with a veterinary company next year, and a revenue stream starts. So we expect to get a lot of interest from companies, and every company has a different market and different way of doing this. And so what we want to do is to reward our investors for sticking with us so long, those who've been here longer than the new investors. So we want to issue dividends to them. The next exit strategy would be that we would look for a company that who is on the market. And so we would merge with them, and then that gives a way for people to exit or sell their shares and exit the company, or all part of it, their shares. And then after a few years, if that doesn't happen, we may have our own IPA. Maybe we're talking about 2 to 3 years to do that. To have our own IPO, we would have to spend lots of money to execute that, but there's companies around to help you through that process. So anyway, so that's what we intend to do. We want to get this product, our shares on the market.
Excellent. And then Raheel, do we have any large investors or planning to come?
The answer is yes. I have talked to a number of significant investors, and they're waiting in the wings.
I mean, I will say, even through Front Funder, you've had some, significant investors come through Front Funder. Certainly some large amounts coming through, as well as those that I know you've been talking to. Okay, I think we've done it. I think we've answered everybody's questions. I hope we have. And it's just fabulous to get all these great questions. I mean, shows that you're engaged and really wanting to know more about this real game-changing device. Quick one, slot it in. David, you just got it in time. Why give exclusive rights to a drug to any one company when non-exclusive rights would produce more revenue?
Unfortunately, we don't drive that bus. When we listen to technology to the drug company, they tell us that how they wanted to consummate the agreement. So we don't do anything.
That's the market, the way it's done. So yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Dick. This has been really, really informative, and just really good to hear the update on the trial process. We're getting lots of thank yous coming through. Had a great time listening and learning. And you probably see me looking down because we're also on Facebook at the moment. So I'm responding to that. It's another thank you. The PKA Soft Touch capital raise is running on Front Funder until October the 1st this year. Canadians living in Ontario, Alberta, BC, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Quebec are all, Quebec, if you're an accredited investor, I've just got to qualify that one, are all eligible to invest with a minimum investment of $500. Of course, you can invest more depending on your profile. You can be one of those large investors that people were asking about. You can go online to www.frontfunder.com/PKA Soft Touch. Front Funder is spelled FRONTFUNDR, and you can find the full information and you're able to invest online. Thank you very much, Dick. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. I think it's been a fabulous session. Please stay in touch. If you sign up on Front Funder, you can get our weekly updates on the progress of the campaign and progress on the trials. And as Dick said, you can get full updates once you're an investor. So thank you very much, Dick. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye now.